Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tatho Jayam Mudire Shrunvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridayantasto hi abhadrani vidhunoti suhritsatam Nashtaprayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki Grantrat Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Today we'll be reading Canto 1, Chapter 18, verse 21.
Yes.
अथापि यत्पादनखावृशिष्टम्
Athapi yatpadanakavasrishtam
जगद्विरिञ्चोपहृतार्हनाभ
jagadvirinchoparitaranambha
शेषं पुनाति अन्यतमो मुकुन्दात्
Shesham punati anyatamo mukundat
को नाम लोके भगवत्पदार्थ
Punam loke bhagavat padartha
अथापि यत्पादनखावृशिष्टम्
Athapi yatpadanakavasrishtam
जगद्विरिञ्चोपहृतार्हनाभ
jagadvirinchoparitaranambha
शेषं पुनाति अन्यतमो मुकुन्दात्
Shesham punati anyatamo mukundat
को नाम लोके भगवत्पदार्थ
Punam loke bhagavat padartha
अथापि यत्पादनखावशिष्टम्
Athapi yatpadanakavasrishtam
जगद्विरिञ्चोपहृतार्हनाभ
jagadvirinchoparitaranambha
शेषं पुनाति अन्यतमो मुकुन्दात्
Shesham punati anyatamo mukundat
को नाम लोके भगवत्पदार्थ
Punam loke bhagavat padartha Athapi yatpadanakavasrishtam
अथापि यत्पादनखावशिष्टम्
jagadvirinchoparitaranambha
जगद्विरिञ्चोपहृतार्हनाभ
Shesham punati anyatamo mukundat
शेषं पुनाति अन्यतमो मुकुन्दात्
Punam loke bhagavat padartha
को नाम लोके भगवत्पदार्थ. Word-to-word translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Ata,
Atha
therefore, api, certainly, yat,
Yat
whose, padanakha,
Padanaka
nails of the feet,
nails of the feet
avashrishtam,
Avasrishtam
emanating,
Jagat
the whole universe,
the whole universe
virincha,
Virincha
brahmaji,
Brahmaji
upahrita,
Upaharita
collected,
Arhana
worship, ambha, water,
Sa
along with,
along with
isham, Lord Shiva, punati, purifies, anyatamaha, who else, mukundat, besides the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna,
besides the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna
kaha, who, nama, name, loke, within the world, bhagavat, supreme Lord, pada, position, arthaha, worth. Translation: who can be worthy of the name of the Supreme Lord but the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna? Brahmaji collected the water emanating from the nails of his feet in order to award it to Lord Shiva as a worshipful welcome. This very water, the Ganges, is purifying the whole universe, including Lord Shiva. Purport: the conception of many gods in the Vedic literatures by the ignorant is completely wrong. The Lord is one without a second, but he expands himself in many ways, and this is confirmed in the Vedas. Such expansions of the Lord are limitless, but some of them are the living entities. The living entities are not as powerful as the Lord's plenary expansions, and therefore there are two different types of expansions. Lord Brahma is generally one of the living entities, and Lord Shiva is the via medium between the Lord and the living entities. In other words, even demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, who are the chief amongst all demigods, are never equal to or greater than Lord Vishnu, the supreme personality of Godhead. The goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, and all powerful demigods like Brahma and Shiva are engaged in the worship of Vishnu or Lord Krishna. Therefore, who can be more powerful than Mukunda, Lord Krishna, to be factually called the supreme personality of Godhead? The goddess of fortune, Lakshmi ji, Lord Brahma, and Lord Shiva are not independently powerful. They are powerful as expansions of the Supreme Lord, and all of them are engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, and so also are the living entities. There are four sects of worshipful devotees of the Lord, and the chief amongst them are the Brahma Sampradaya, Rudra Sampradaya, and the Sri Sampradaya, descending directly from Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, respectively. Besides the above mentioned three Sampradayas, there is the Kumara Sampradaya, descending from Sanat Kumar. All of the four original Sampradayas are still scrupulously engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord up to date, and they all declare that Lord Krishna, Mukunda, is the supreme personality of Godhead, and no other personality is equal to him or greater than him. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामी इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna, dear devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Please offer small prayer so that the right words come at the right time in the glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Hare Krishna.
In today's purport, Prabhupada starts off with a very powerful statement. The conception of many gods in the Vedic literatures by the ignorant is completely wrong. And the whole purport has two basic themes that Prabhupada touches upon. He establishes that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, and he says, who else can be the Supreme Lord? And he also says, there are four sects of worshipful devotees that are the four sampradayas, which are still existing today. And he says how they are bona fide representatives because the lineage has begun from Krishna. They have received knowledge like Rudra Sampradaya from Lord Shiva, Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, which we subscribe to, is from Lord Brahma, then Lord Lakshmi Devi, as well as the Sanat Kumaras, the four Kumaras headed by Sanat Kumar. So these are the four bona fide sampradayas, and Prabhupada has established that they are allowed or they know how to worship the Lord correctly. Everything else would not be bona fide. So we one of the characteristics of the Madhva Sampradaya is the powerful ultimatums that are thrown about, because Madhvacharya was very against the conception of Mayavad philosophy. So he spoke very powerfully and strongly and defended the Gaudiya Sampradaya, the entire Vaishnava Sampradayas, and he had very strong rebuttals against the Mayavadis. So we can see in a lot of Prabhupada's writings, Prabhupada may be okay or lenient with people even being atheist, but he's very against the Mayavadis. And that flavor of preaching style comes from Madhvacharya, who is, you could say, the chief guru of the Sampradaya. That's why it's called Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. So even when we have the Sri Sampradaya, we say it is also the Ramanuja Sampradaya. And when we say the Rudra Sampradaya, we also say Vallabhacharya Sampradaya. And for the Sanat Kumaras, we say it's the Vishnu Swami Sampradaya. Nimbarkacharya Sampradaya. So they are the chief gurus who have received knowledge. So now in today's class, we will delve a little deeper into some verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam where the demigods themselves say that Vishnu, Krishna, is the supreme Lord, and why their words are important. So if you take an example of a political party, for example, let's not take names. Let's say A and B. If and they are they are sworn enemies. No, not enemies. Maybe they have a strong, very strong belief system, and they do not subscribe to the other party. So let's say there's A and B. If they're having a press conference and someone from the party A comes to a press conference and tells that B is the greatest, then everybody would really believe that. If someone from the political party B comes and says B is the best, they'll be like, ah, okay, he's part of B, so he's saying that as it is. But if someone from the political party A, who strongly believes in A, comes and tells that B is the best, then everybody would actually believe it. So, in that sense, we see Prabhupada's very first statement in the purport: the conception of many gods in the Vedic literatures by the ignorant is completely wrong. He's trying to say that, he's clearly saying that the you could say the multi-god system that's especially prevalent in India, where everybody thinks any god is okay, any god, every god is supreme. So offering worship to any god should be sufficient to get liberation from this material world. So he's breaking that. So today we'll look at some of the verses. But before that, we see there's a very interesting thing that Shukdev Goswami uh, talks about here, and that is the word usage of Mukunda. Oh, I think Sutta Goswami is saying, sorry, that Mukunda, the word used for Krishna here is Mukunda. Mukunda means one who gives liberation, who gives mukti. And we see even in yesterday's verse that Karukana Prabhu was talking about, uh, the, it is ascertained that he is unlimited and there is none equal to him. Consequently, no one can speak of him adequately. And there are many such names for Krishna that's given. One of the names is Adhokshaja, and he's also called Uttama Shloka. All of these are used very specifically by Sutta Goswami and Shukadeva Goswami throughout the Bhagavatam to elicit a certain kind of respect for the Lord. When someone says Uttama Shloka, the highest verses are used to praise him, or the verse uses to praise him are always the highest. So it's called Uttama Shloka. Or if Krishna is referred to as Adhokshaja, it means in Sanskrit alphabet, the first alphabet is A and the last is Ksha. So Adhokshaja means every permutation and combination of words that can be created from A to Ksha is insufficient to glorify the Supreme Lord. So we see in yesterday's translation, consequently, no one can speak of him adequately. So that's why Krishna is known as Adhokshaja. So there's a very specific use of names to call Krishna. He could have just said Krishna, but the usage here is Mukunda. So we are specifically talking about liberation and moving away from the material world. So before that, we will look a little bit deeper into one of the contributions that led to. Okay, we will talk about the glories of the current sampradaya that ISKCON subscribes to, and that is the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu established sampradaya. That it is the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya sampradaya, but what makes it special is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu specifically took the best of each sampradaya, two characteristics that are the best in each of the four sampradayas, and then combined it all together in what we follow in ISKCON now. So you can say it's the best of all worlds in one. So before that, we will look at what happened in the 1770s when the king of Jaipur, he was uh, so Jaipur had the best kings at that point in time, and they also protected a lot of the deities that were in Vrindavan, which were uh, under the Mughal emperor, and they would, tarnish the deities and disrespect temples, break down temples. So many of the priests at that time tried to protect the deities by hiding them or taking them to a place where the kings are more powerful. So there they took from Vrindavan all the way to Jaipur, and that's where there are some of the most beautiful temples of Krishna. So one of the at that time the worship was offered to Radha Govind Dev, and the king's palace was right next to the temple, and it was so created that anytime he steps out to the patio or balcony, he could see that some worship is going on in the temple. So he can always offer his worship, even though he is just in his patio. So that is, you could say, a very interesting time to be in. And at that time, the priests that were offering worship, they were known as Ramanandis, or they thought that worship of Lord you can see from the name Ram Anandi. So they relished in the worship of Lord Ram, and they were from the Sri Sampradaya, that is from the Lakshmi um, Sri Vaishnav Sampradaya. So they were Ramanandis. So at this time, there were also the Gaudiya Vaishnavas there from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's sect as well. And at that time, the Ramanandis complained to the king that these Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they are not bona fide. So we should not let them worship Radha Govind Dev. And they were actually shocked. So, and at this time, the messages were sent to the foremost saint at that point in time, and that was Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, who was in Vrindavan. And he was told that these Ramanandis, they're saying that we are not a bona fide Sampradaya, so we are not allowed to offer worship. And Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur was like very old at that point in time. So he tells his foremost disciple, Baldev Vidyabhushan, to go and sort this situation. So Baldev Vidyabhushan comes and he speaks to the Ramanandis, and he counters, he establishes that we did not, and the main reason, you could say the main rebuttal that the Ramanandis had was that Radha and Krishna should not be worshipped, but Ram Sita should be worshipped, because that is a bona fide marriage. So they should be worshipped and not Radha and Krishna. And then Baldev Vidyabhushan, he rebutted with a lot of different verses and proofs that the worship is okay. And then they then claim that there is no Vedantic commentary that the Madhva Sampradaya has. So we cannot accept the proofs that you're giving us. So you need to establish it based on some Vedantic commentaries. So at that time, there was a kind of a challenge that he had 18 days. Baldev Vidyabhushan had 18 days to compile the Vedantic, you could say, commentary to establish the authority of the Madhva Sampradaya. And at that time, he really took shelter of Krishna, and within 7 days he was able to compile the commentaries. And because he offered prayers to Krishna, Baldev Vidyabhushan himself says that it was Krishna, Govinda, who wrote through me. He used me as an instrument to write. And that's why the commentary is known as Govinda Bhashya. And that commentary established the Sampradaya again. Because at one point in time, it kind of waned, and there was no establishment of authority there. And Baldev Vidyabhushan was the one who re-established it. And that's why when Prabhupada wrote the Krishna book, he said, I dedicate the Krishna book to my father. And when he wrote the Bhagavad Gita, he said, I dedicate this to Baldev Vidyabhushan. Because if not for Baldev Vidyabhushan, the authority of the entire Sampradaya would have been tarnished at that point in time. So he was, you could say, the torchbearer at that point in time. And Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur empowered him to do so. So now we will see what are there are two qualities that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu picked from each of the four sampradayas. So there are a total of 8 qualities that were combined, and that is what we have as a Gaudiya Sampradaya that ISKCON follows right now. So from the Madhva Sampradaya, the first one is you could say the powerful rebuttal to the Mayavadis. So that is the one of the main qualities that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took from the Brahma Madhva Sampradaya, from the Brahma. The second one was the quality of deity worship. There was a very high quality or high bar for deity worship, especially because of something like Hari Bhakti Vilas being available. Very high standards of worship were established. As a result, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted all of those to be compiled. So Hari Bhakti Vilas is, like, you can say, the compilation of the best or the highest standard of rules and regulations that should be followed. And as a result, these are the two characteristics. So from Madhva Sampradaya, it is against Mayavad philosophy, and then high standards of deity worship. So next is the Sri Sampradaya or the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya from Ramanujacharya. So from there, Vaishnav Seva was picked because there's a very high or very strong emphasis on Vaishnav Seva in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. They believe, you can see from King Kulashekara Alvar's prayer itself. He says, मज्जन्मना फलमिदं मधुकैटभारे मत्प्रार्थनीय मदनुग्रह एष एव त्वद्भृत्य भृत्य परिचारक भृत्य भृत्य भृत्यस्य भृत्य इति मां स्मर लोकनाथ. He himself says, I consider my life to be successful. Majjanmana phalamidam. He says he's a king, and he says, I consider my life to be successful if Tvad Bhritya is servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, and 7 times removed. Bhritya Tvad Bhritya Paricharaka Bhritya Seva. So he wants to be the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. Many recursion stacks removed. So that Vaishnav Seva quality is, it's not really borrowed per se. It is emphasized more in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got it to what we follow now. And the second quality from the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya is Ananya Bhakti, on what we call as pure devotion, where there is Ananya, nothing else other than Bhakti. So there is no karma, no jnana, no mishra or mixing of any of them. So pure what we call as pure devotion and complete surrender, those things are borrowed from the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. So now we have like the 4 qualities that were borrowed from these 2 sampradayas. Next is the Rudra Sampradaya, which follows the philosophy known as Vishishta Advaita or qualified monism. So from the Rudra Sampradaya, the total dependence on Krishna, when we have the 6, you could say the limbs of Sharanagati or surrender, there is Goptritva Varnam, complete dependence on Krishna, and Krishna as being the only protector, total dependence on him. That comes from the Rudra Sampradaya. And Raganuga Bhakti also comes from the Rudra Sampradaya, following in the footsteps of the devotees of the Lord. And from the Kumara Sampradaya, which is a mix of both Dvaita, that is dualism, that we have like Jiva is a part and parcel of Krishna, but completely independent. Independent in the sense it's not part of the Lord. It's separate from the Lord. So duality and monism. So it's a mix of both, but still within the purview of the Vaishnava Sampradaya. So that's the 4 Kumar Sampradaya. So they from there, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu picked shelter of Sri Radha. The other Sampradayas, especially the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, do not really go too much into the Swakiya and Parakiya Ras and everything, but the shelter of Srimati Radharani comes from the 4 Kumar Sampradaya. And the bhav of the gopis is also borrowed from there. So these are the 8 characteristics that are borrowed from these 4 sampradayas. So the emphasis on no Mayavad philosophy and deity worship from the Madhva Sampradaya, Vaishnav Seva and Ananya Bhakti from the Sri Vaishnav Sampradaya, complete dependence on Krishna and Raganuga Bhakti from the Rudra Sampradaya, shelter of Sri Radha and bhav of the gopis from the Kumar Sampradaya. So all of these, if you see, are strongly emphasized in what we follow from Srila Prabhupada's teachings. And it does not seem like they come from elsewhere. But that's because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got the best of all 4. You could say generally say best of both worlds, best of all 4 worlds into one. And that's why this is probably the sweetest fruit on the tallest tree, as we have the Acharyas commenting. So as I'm continuing from the past time, we see Govinda Bhashya was written in 7 days. And one thing to understand that also Devrata Prabhu covered in a previous previous class was about what Hanuman said. He said, Srinathe Janakinathe Abheda Paramatmani Tathapi Mavar Sarvaswam Ram Kamala Lochana. Hanuman, when he was asked, he said, Srinathe. Shri is Lakshmi. Nath is who's the master of Lakshmi? That is Narayan, Lakshmi Narayan. Or you could also say Lakshmi Narsimha. And Srinathe, Janaki. Janaki is Mother Sita. Who's the master of Mother Sita? Lord Ram. Right? So Srinathe, Janaki, Abheda. Bheda is difference. Abheda is there's no difference. They are one and the same. They are the same Vishnu Tattva. Abheda, Paramatmani. They are the highest. Param Atmani. Highest Atma. Tathapi Mama Sarvasvam Ram Kamala Lochana. Even then, my favorite flavor of worship is to Ram, the lotus feet of Lord Ram. And that is what brings these four sampradayas together. The four sampradayas may have some slight differences in the flavor of worship to the Supreme Lord, but the tattva of the Lord is understood to be the same by all four. And if anybody comes against the Vaishnav Sampradaya, all four come together to fight that off. And that's what makes this beautiful. So that's the emphasis that Prabhupada is laying here, that these are the four bona fide Sampradayas. If anybody comes and says Krishna or Vishnu is not the highest, then all four will come together to rebut that. Now, we will look at some verses from the Bhagavatam where, especially in the 11th canto, which people then generally have some issues with. And one of the issues is when Krishna was shot by the hunter and he died, not died, he wrapped his manifest pastimes. It is said, some of the Shaivites have this issue that if Krishna was the supreme, how did he pass away from just a hunter shooting an arrow at his feet? And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami himself says that the hunter shot an arrow and it pierced his lotus feet, and then he didn't manifest his pastimes. But what they fail to see is that in the same chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami himself says something. He himself says, Lord Krishna, so Shukadeva Goswami gives four proofs as to why Krishna is the supreme in the same chapter which Shaivites or some other, you could say atheists, have issues with. And the four reasons he gives why Krishna is the supreme is, Lord Krishna brought the son of his guru back from the planet of the Lord of Death in the boy's self-same body. So the first proof he gives in the same chapter is Sandipani Muni's son was killed, but Krishna got him back in his self-same body from the abode of Yamaraj. So he says that can only be done if the person who did the activity is beyond death. He can go and come back and bring in the self-same body. So he gives the first proof. And he's telling to, and Shukadeva Goswami is telling to Parikshit Maharaj himself. And as the ultimate giver of protection, he saved you also when you were burned by the Brahmastra of Ashwatthama. So he tells Parikshit Maharaj, this is the second proof why he is the Supreme Lord. He conquered in battle even Lord Shiva, who deals death to the agents of death. Shiva is the progenitor who presides over the Tamoguna. But Lord Shiva also is known for his Tandav dance, which is the dance of destruction. So he's the agent of death. And Krishna was able to subdue even him. So he's known as, he conquered in battle even Lord Shiva, who deals death to the agents of death. So that's the third. So he's establishing the hierarchy. So clearly Shukadeva Goswami himself is saying that Krishna is above Lord Shiva. And he says, he conquered in battle even Lord Shiva, and he sent the hunter Jara directly to Vaikuntha in his human body. How could such a personality be unable to protect his own self? Shukadeva Goswami himself tells to Parikshit Maharaj that Jara, the hunter who shot him, he was immediately sent to the spiritual world. So how can you say that somebody who did all of these four activities is not the Supreme Lord, and he's establishing it himself? There's also you could say somewhat of a fun story about Madhusudan Saraswati. He was one of the greatest Mayavad philosophers, and what he did was he had maybe close to 100,000 disciples, and he would have a lot of talks where he speaks about the attributes of the Lord who has no attributes. So he speaks about how the Lord is formless, how the Lord does not have any attributes, and he explains and gives depth and detail about how the Lord is formless. And interestingly, one time he had the good fortune of visiting Vrindavan, and then he chanted the names of the Lord in Vrindavan. And once he finished chanting the names of the Lord, he came back to he was from Bengal, but he came back to where he gives a lot of what you call pravachan or talks, and all of his disciples were ready there, and they were like, "Okay, Gurudev, he's gone on a pilgrimage, and he's back, and he looks very happy. He seems like he has some new realizations." So they were all waiting with bated breath, with their notebooks ready to write down the realizations that he has about how the Lord is formless. And at that time, Madhusudan Saraswati, he seemed to have a complete transformation. So he says, Vamshi Vibhushita Karan Navanira Dhabhat, Pitam Barad Aruna Bimba Fala Dharoshtat, Purnendu Sundara Mukhat Aravinda Netrat, Krishnat Param Tattvam Kimapi Aham Na Jane. So he says, when I went to Vrindavan and I chanted, he says, I heard of someone who I saw him. He was so beautiful that he held a flute in his hand, and it was difficult for me to ascertain if the flute is the ornament to his hand or is the hand the ornament to the flute. Karan Navanira Dabha. And then Pitambarad. He was wearing a golden yellow, beautiful Pitambarad Aruna Bimba Phala. Fruit is a fruit that is like bright, you could say very bloodshot red. And he says his lips were bloodshot red. Purna Indu Mukhat Aravinda Netra. He says his face, although he may have been born on Ashtami, his face was complete Purnima. His face was like a blossoming moon. And Mukhat Aravinda Netrat, Krishnat Param, and his name was Krishna. And I have no philosophy higher than him. And then he converted all of his disciples to become devotees. And all of this happened because he went to Vrindavan. And he was the greatest Mayavad sannyasi. So the, the, there are a lot of speakers in ISKCON who talk about Madhusudan Saraswati and how he had a complete transformation of heart. He was, you can say, the greatest Advait philosophy, and he was the greatest propagator of Mayavadi philosophy. But he himself got transformed just by visiting Vrindavan once.
When did he live?
1490 or
14.
1590.
Oh, hell of a budget, huh?
Yeah. So there are also a couple more things that I wanted to cover. That's from the sixth canto, from the Vritrasur pastime. One interesting thing about the Srimad Bhagavatam is that it talks about, actually many of the Puranas talk about some of the pastimes. There are a few other Puranas. There's also the Narsimha Purana, which talks about Narsimha Dev and Prahlad Maharaj. There are Agni Purana, which talks about some of the pastimes the Bhagavatam has. There are many pastimes. The Brahma Vaivarta Purana has some of Krishna's pastimes with the gopis as well. But there's one very interesting thing that Srimad Bhagavatam has. Although there is Bhishma mentioned in the other Puranas, Bhishma Dev, when he's depicted there, he's depicted as a villain, someone who did something wrong. He was not there for Mother Draupadi. He's depicted as a villain. Only in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the very first canto, he is shown to be one of the greatest and most heroic figures who fought on the side of the Kauravas just to please Lord Krishna. And he's given, you could say, due respect as one of the Mahajanas and pure devotees. And it's only in the Srimad, and there are other Puranas which also talk about Indra fighting Vritrasura. And in all of those Puranas, Indra is shown to be the hero who fought through Vritrasura and came out with as the winner. Only in the Srimad Bhagavatam is the true side shown, where Vritrasura is considered as one of the purest devotees of the Lord, and how Indra was the villain in that case. In other Puranas, not much is mentioned about Kunti except that she struggled a lot. But the prayers of Queen Kunti has literally been made into a book itself. So Kunti Devi is given so much emphasis and respect in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Same for Narsimhadev and Prahlad Maharaj. When Narsimhadev is mentioned in the other Puranas, Narsimhadev is the hero. But in the Srimad Bhagavatam, half of the seventh canto, or more than half of the seventh canto, is just Prahlad Narsimha Leela. And there Prahlad is given the spotlight. And the emphasis is on pure devotion and how a devotee can offer respect to the Lord. And in that, if we come to Vritrasur's pastime, where the demigods, they are afraid and they go to Lord Narayan, Lord Vishnu, and then they offer prayers and request him to give Narayan Kavach. And they also request him, and then that is when Lord Vishnu tells you need Dadichi Muni's bones to perform the sacrifice, and then you'll get a thunderbolt. Indra will get a thunderbolt that will kill Vritrasur. And there's a very interesting prayer that I want to cover, that is 6.9.21, where the Sri Deva Uchuhu. So Uchuhu, we say Uvacha is for a singular, and Uchuhu is when multiple devatas. So here Sri Deva Uchuhu means all the devatas offered their worship to Lord Narayan. So this is what I started the class off with when I said there's a political party A and B. If someone from political party A come and tell that B is the best, then everybody would genuinely believe it, because someone who's strongly adherent to their own philosophy thinks the other one is correct, then everybody would be like, okay, he really has a point. So here we have the devatas themselves telling that the supreme Krishna is the supreme Lord. So Deva Uchuhu 6:9-21, the demigod said, the three worlds are created by the five elements, namely ether, air, fire, water, and earth, which are controlled by various demigods, beginning from Lord Brahma. Being very much afraid that the time factor will end our existence, we offer presentations unto time by performing our work as time dictates. The time factor himself, however, is afraid of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, let us now worship that Supreme Lord who alone can give us full protection. So, as you can see here, Prabhupada himself says, only in the spiritual world there is no need for Bhaya, Maituna, and all of the four pillars of material life. And here we see that the demigods themselves, headed by Lord Brahma, is in fear, Bhaya. And they themselves, and what does Krishna say? Time I am, Kalos Meham, Bharata Shabha, he tells Arjuna, I am time, the destroyer, consumer of lifetime of everybody. And here, headed by Lord Brahma, they were afraid that the time factor will end their existence, and therefore they're offering worship. I understand they are offering worship with a material motive, and it's not pure devotional service. They're offering worship just for protection, but they are clearly saying this is not, you could say, something sycophantic that they're saying to get just the affection of the Lord. They actually mean it because they know that they are not supreme. So we see in the next verse, free from all material conceptions of existence and never wonderstruck by anything, the Lord is always jubilant and fully satisfied by his own spiritual perfection. He has no material designations and therefore he is steady and unattached. That Supreme Personality of Godhead is the only shelter of everyone. Anyone desiring to be protected by others is certainly a great fool who desires to cross the sea by holding the tail of a dog. So this is exactly what Hiranyakashipu did. He offered worship, penances, uh, and he got Lord Brahma to give him certain kinds of boons. He asked him, give me immortality. And Brahma said, how can I give you something that I myself don't have? Ask for something more sane. And that is when he asked, I should not be killed during day or night. I should not be killed by man or animal, beast. I should not be killed during day or night. So he offered his own riddle to Brahma, and Lord Brahma said, okay, all of this is within the purview of me, so I can give it to you. And he offers those boons to Hiranyakashipu. And that's exactly what the Devatas are saying now. Anyone desiring to be protected by others is certainly a great fool who desires to cross the sea by holding the tail of a dog. So they're offering some powerful words in front of the Supreme Lord, but they're talking about us, like not maybe not all of you, at least for me, about how um, I depend on some fallible soldiers to give me some sort of happiness or some sort of security, and all of these are exactly fools who desire to cross the sea by holding the tail of a dog. And one more interesting thing that the demigod said, Deva Uchuhu, in verse 31 of the same chapter. Um, oh, one second. Oh. The demigod said, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are competent to give the results of sacrifice, and you are also the time factor that destroys all such results in due course. You are the one who releases the chakra to kill the demons. O Lord, who possesses many varieties of names, we offer our respectful obeisances unto you. And this verse ties in exactly with what Prabhupada is saying in today's purport, that who can be worthy of the name Supreme Lord but the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna himself? And here we have the demigod themselves saying the same thing. You are the one who releases the chakra to kill the demons. O Lord, who possesses many varieties of names, we offer our respectful obeisances unto you. All of the demigods themselves have ceded that Sri Krishna, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah, and there's one more thing. So now they've offered their worship to Lord Vishnu, and we can see how confident and nonchalantly Lord Vishnu replies to them. So he says, Lord Vishnu, Supreme Lord, he says, O best of the intelligent demigods, although it is true that nothing is difficult for one to obtain when I am pleased with him, A pure devotee whose mind is exclusively fixed upon me does not ask me for anything but the opportunity to engage in devotional service. So this seems like a kind of a scolding that the Supreme Lord is giving to the demigods, and it is true. If you see a parent who actually cares about their child is strict with the child, offers some rebukes or some scoldings so that they are guided along the right path. A parent who does not correct their child is one who may seemingly love the child, but they don't really care about the benefit of the child. So here, the Supreme Lord himself is clearly, he's not even mincing words. He's saying it to the demigods. You are all speaking very intelligently, but you're asking me for some fallible soldiers again. Pure devotees are the ones who don't ask me for anything. They're exclusive, their mind is exclusively fixed upon me, which is what Krishna tells twice in the Bhagavad Gita. Does not ask me for anything but the opportunity to engage in devotional service. That is who pure devotee is. And this is, like, you can say it's like a private conversation between the devatas and the Supreme Lord, which is brought to us for our own purification. And then the Lord also says, those who think material assets to be everything or to be the ultimate goal of life are called misers or kripanas. They do not know the ultimate necessity of the soul. Moreover, if one awards that which is desired by such fools, he must also be considered foolish. So the Lord is telling something about himself. He says, if someone wants fallible soldiers and they come to me for those fallible soldiers, if someone gives them those fallible soldiers, they're doing them the greatest disservice. And the person giving them that should also be called a fool. That's why the Lord, if you see, there's this comparison that all of Shiva's devotees are very rich, but the devotees of Lord Vishnu are poor and they live simple lives and they don't have much wealth. And that is exactly what Lord Krishna is saying. If someone offers worship and they're given things that can be taken away at the time of death, as we saw, Maharaj had that topic on the spider yesterday. He posted on the group. So if someone gives them that which does not persist through the clutches of time, that person is foolish. The one who giving them that is also foolish. So, okay, I think I had a couple more points to talk about, but I think we're over time. So I will stop here, dear Willis. Thank you for your attention. Hare Krishna. I don't know if we have any corrections or anything.
Prabhupada said that well, the devotion, because it was such a monumental task. Prabhupada said he paid a basis to Govinda for 3 days.
Whoa.
To get the actually it's Govinda Vasha's commentary. Govinda spoke. Govinda Vasha commentary on Govinda. So it was by the sincerity of Balaji and Krishna. Govinda spoke.
It's also said Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami, when he was writing, he was trying to write the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He was so old, he couldn't hold the pen. His hand was vibrating and his eyes would close. So he had to use his hand to keep his eyes open. He was that old, you could say very senile. And it was Srimati Radharani who wrote through him as an instrument, Chaitanya Charitamrita. So they're at a completely different level. Stop. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की
जय।
अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय।
Nice class.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.